director.
Okay, Suhas, Arun, thanks very much for joining us with your comments on the show, and Arun for constantly updating us on this story. I also spoke with Rajiv Kumar, a man who's been tracking this story, and of course the former DG of FICCI. He knows the Tata Group. Also Morgan Witzel, who's the author of the book on Tatas, to get their comments. Also with us, Saurabh Mazumdar, the editor of Forbes.
Really is a very sad day that that the brand is going to be tarnished. There's no doubt, there is no doubt about that. And I really just hope that it is not dragged into the courts, because once it is, then you don't know what might come out. Because you mentioned corporate democracy, but democracy, shareholder democracy, but which shareholders are we talking about? I mean, after all, the Tata Sons shareholders, the shareholding is very highly, is concentrated, and so you might well think, you might well refer to, in some sense, shareholder oligarchy, if you like, rather than democracy, and shareholder, shareholder sort of bullying their way through. So my one point, Shirin, though, is that all of this could have been prevented if and only if the Tata Sons board had come out with a proper explanation as to why this amazing drastic step, precipitate step has been taken. And in light of the fact that this has not been done, I think it doesn't show very well on the corporate governance style of Tata Sons at all.
We don't know the details, but this does seem to be a case of someone unwilling to let go.
Well, Shireen, we don't know much about it, and that's a caveat, to use the word which is being most used today. That's a caveat one needs to put forward right up there. We don't know what really transpired, like Mr. Rajiv Kumar says, for the sudden and hasty decision in which Mr. Mistry has been removed. But definitely, as we said yesterday as well, we were discussing, and I think it's pretty evident that the styles of governance and operations were very, very different for both the people in question. So while Cyrus Mistry has gotten his own GEC, which has now been disbanded, with people who now we are talking about, whether they actually overstretched their powers and all of that. And then there were the operating companies. There were also a lot of people in the group who were obviously have been there for years and have been used to a certain style of functioning. Also strategic decisions which may or may not have gone down well, not just with Mr. Tata, who remember was not on the board, but he's the Tata Trust 66% shareholder, but also the rest of the board, who clearly have stood by this change and this new decision. So one doesn't really know what exactly was the trigger, but it's very clear that the way in which Mr. Mistry was taking the group, rightly or wrongly, obviously was the key cause of friction until something else comes out. We don't know what.
Morgan, let me bring you in on this conversation. And now this is really going to be about rebuilding credibility, rebuilding trust, and that is going to be a significant challenge, even though Mr. Tata, in a sense, is back at the helm. And the question now about the successor, names are being bandied about. The similar names did the rounds before Cyrus Mistry was brought in as well. But, the challenge for whoever comes in as a successor for Cyrus Mistry, given the atmosphere that stands so vitiated today.
Well, yes, I think you're absolutely right. The challenge is going to be one of rebuilding trust. And so the leader whom they pick this time is obviously going to be rather different from the leader they picked the last time, not just for the obvious reason that there's been this breakdown that you refer to between the chairman and effectively their chief shareholder, the head of the Tata Trust. But also times have changed. Things have moved on. There have been 4 years of change in the global economy. The Tata Group is in a different position than it was before. There's a whole bunch of other things out there that have to be looked at too. Plus, as you say, there is that issue of rebuilding whatever trust is being lost. I'm speaking from a European perspective. I don't take quite such a gloomy picture as some of your other speakers have about the issue of loss of trust. The main thing that is worrying people in the European companies of Tata, here in the UK and Germany elsewhere, is simply the uncertainty It's what's going to happen next. You know, the discussions with Krupp Thiessen about the future of Tata Steel, for example. Where are those going to go? Is there going to be a change of policy on those? And so employees and customers and suppliers of Tata's European companies are basically now just sort of sitting and waiting to see what's going to happen next. So another crucial factor here, I think, is going to be speed of response. A move to reassure the markets, a move to reassure employees and suppliers and other stakeholders that it will be business as usual at Tata. That's going to be every bit as critical, I think, as the choice of a new leader.
Well, reactions they're pouring into that big story, but we'll need to slip into our break. But on the other side, we go into breaking news again, because we'll tell you how India fared on the World Bank Ease of Doing Business.